Are you black and proud? Are you cultured and know enough about your history to at least know you came from greatness and not slavery? Did you know that the wealthiest person in all history was a black man, Mansa Musa I of Mali, a 14th century African king? Black people are tired of feeling economically deprived. Have you ever felt that black people should have progressed in this country much more than we are currently? In fact, it seems like we're sliding backwards instead of moving forward. Are you tired of the lack of resources and feeling drained? Have you observed our communities being gentrified? Have you noticed our youth feeling like the elders never left anything behind for them? Now we have to start life from scratch. We are in a very depressed state as a result of all of these factors. We are creating an opportunity to empower our community to do something about this situation, using one tool that gives us a fighting chance: education. With our new show, we intend to help our audience to be informed about the economic state of the black community and its connection to their lack of money, to be educated to a new solution paradigm, namely group economics. Find outlets and resources to practice group economics. You will also learn directly from top scholars and entrepreneurs about the paths to success. Learn more about the history of blacks and the black businesses in the UK. Learn where black businesses are located in the UK. Learn the code of conduct for practicing group economics. Learn directly from top scholars and entrepreneurs about the paths to success. It's a 30-minute show hosted by Diana Powell. Each week, she'll start with a weekly introduction to group economics. She will then bring on top scholars such as Robin Walker to discuss a historical situation in which group economics played a part. The likes of Shell Phoenix to discuss black people's spending power and other spending behaviour. Next, Charmaine Simpson, who explores the mechanics of group economics and what black people should be doing now. Lastly, weekly, the audience is introduced to actual businesses in the community they can support right away. We invite you to tune into the Black Group Economics Business Show, the solution to the lack of money in the black community, every month on gotkushTV.
International speaker, Pastor David Shosanye. Let's receive him, let's receive him, let's receive him. They call him the Black History Man. One of the greatest scholars the UK has ever produced. Taking his time to get up, he's taking his time to get up, but he is the Black History Man, so we'll wait for him. Can we receive Robin Walker, my master teacher? This woman does everything. She's a singer, she's a presenter, she's just simply amazing. Make some noise for Jamelia! We're going to receive another one of our international guests. She is an award-winning author on financial literacy, travels around the world speaking, has produced a book called Kids Who Bank. I want you to receive from New York, by way of Cape Verde, Jatali Bellaton! Amazing educator. She has been in headship. She is out there, activist for the community. Can you receive Adele Steadman? amazing. Entrepreneur par excellence. I want you to receive my good friend, amazing businessman, and has just started his own political party called the Initiative Party. Can you receive Mr. Charles Gordon? And another one of our international guests. We like to tease him. No, it's not Beanie Man. No. This is Dr. Nova Felder. The room's heavy right now. Trust me, the room's heavy right now. All right, so guys, as I said before, we've got just some amazing people here. Can I just get a massive round of applause for this panel? You need to get the cameras out. This is history in the making. Believe me. It got heavy in here. We've got some amazing people to ask questions as well. So this is the first of hopefully many that we'll do on this debate. And what I said is that we are gonna have selected people asking questions. The questions will come to the panel members. Panel members, you don't have to answer the question. If you feel like let's just move over that one. Let's just move over that one. That's all good. Because I know some of them are quite deep. All right. And then it will go back to the audience and we're going to discuss it. Like I said before, we're going to discuss it as a family. So we're going to be respectful, we're going to be polite. Is that all right? Yeah. And even if you don't agree with someone, that's all right too. All right, so I'm going to take the first question from an activist. He's an actor, amazing speaker. He's always a presenter, does loads in the community. Sarah Garvey, please stand, my brother.
Okay, first question is, do black people need their own political party, and what are the negatives and positives for having their own political party in the UK?
All right, did everyone get that question? Yeah. Do black people need their own political party, and what are the positives and negatives of their own political party? I'm going to start with Charles Gordon, seeing as he set up his own political party. What do you think about that one, sir?
Okay, right now, I think there's a lot of different ways of approaching this. Do we need our own political party? I think I want to put that back to the crowd. Do you think we need our own political party?
No.
No? All right. Yes. The person who said no, can I ask why?
Because I don't think it's in the benefit of our own interests. Because if you look at the system that you want to be part of, it's not for us.
Okay.
It's not dealing with home and the people home and the diaspora.
Okay, can I ask, all right, I'm just gonna deal with that point. Now, the purpose of setting up a political party for myself was purely on what you said. Because the issue we have, Conservative doesn't represent us. Labour doesn't represent us. We've got a lot of people effectively who feel as if, as far as politics goes, it's pointless. Because anything I do, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever because none of them represent me. So the purpose of setting this up was purely so that we get representation. Because ultimately we've got a lot of issues within our communities, we've got a lot of issues that are happening that we have absolutely no say over. Now, ultimately, where does it make sense that we can be living in a community and have no voice as to what happens within that community? And the only way, the issues that I had is I looked at it and thought, well, do you know what? Conservative. Even if I joined their party, the problem I'd have is anything that I said that they didn't like, I'd get crushed. So my thing is, and this is why I've been in business a long time and I learned early doors, what you do is you build your own. So my thing was, we build our own party, we have our own say, we're very careful about how we play it, we don't make it a black party because black people ultimately represent the minority. But so what we've done is we've based our party based in business and the core essence of the things that make communities work. But ultimately, it's so that we're in a position where we can have a say over what happens in our communities and deal with our community issues. And I think it's imperative that we all get behind and support. I don't vote. I haven't voted because I know that it makes absolutely no difference. So my viewpoint is, if I give you something to vote for, would you guys vote?
Yes.
If it's going to help you, would you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Hey, the man's asking a question.
Yes. Yes.
I think you should ask it again.
Like what you said, you just said right now, it's like you're not trying to make it obvious like it's for black people, you're trying to make a minority thing. See, my issue then that boils down to is like, I'm not trying to include, don't try to be disrespectful about the Asian or the Turkish man. I'm not for that. I just want my people. I'm about my people and my struggles. It's like what the Queen said earlier on when she was in school. She learned about, Irish Revolution and potato famine, and that's exactly what happened to me. I've got no interest for the potato famine. I don't know what that's about. I had to go and do geography. So, regardless of what you said, it's basically a story for us.
Right, what I'm going to say to that is, it's something that's going to be based within the community. So we're not going to alienate other communities, because similarly as we have problems within the black community, the Asians have problems in their community. But the issue is that they also don't have a voice. So my thing is, ultimately, we deal with our community issues, but we do it within our community, but we make sure that we put our person inside the Houses of Parliament, that when they're running acts that are relevant to us, we have a vote on it. And yes, the Asians will have their own say, and we might let them do it under our banner. But the reality is that we're about supporting and looking after and dealing with our communities and our issues. And there's only one way to do that, and that's from inside. Because you can't change it from the outside looking in. I see too many people standing on the side skirts and saying, we're upset about this and we're upset about that. But the question is, what are you doing about it? Yeah, and the truth of the matter is you can't do anything about it unless you step into the arena.
Does anyone else on the panel want to take it? Go Jatali, and then we're going to go Robin.
So, two things. One, I feel like one of the things that he touched upon when he was speaking was saying that what you were discussing as far as wanting something for the black community. I do agree with you when you say you want something for the black community, and what I mean by that is it would be beautiful to have something that is about our people, for our people, by our people, representing our people, with our people in the line, right? Unified, right? But the last thing I just said is the first thing that is important is the unification part. And we as black people have to understand that black, and I was just saying it in the back, black in colour is not a race, it's not a nationality. In reality, in the Supreme Court, rather it's in America or here in the UK, it is not something that you can go in front of them and say, my people are the black people, my people are the coloured people, right? So the first step to me, even before you even get a political party, or if you're creating a political party, is maybe underneath that political banner, creating something where you're unifying to say, hey, we are all Africans, right? Or rather it is, and we'll use the word coloured because a lot of people associate with that word, right? But like, let's say you're a melanated person from Australia. You need to be able to say that I come back from Africa. If you are a melanated person in Chicago that looks like you're white, you need to, but you know that you're melanated. There's so much division amongst us, especially when it comes to colorism, that the first step is fixing that problem. So even if you create a political party, part of creating a political party, the only reason it would be important to me, or positive, is if we fix the colorism issue that is in our community. To give you a quick example, when we went to Australia in February, my husband and my son, there were lots of black Americans with us. And when we got to Australia, they saw the Aborigines and a lot of the locals, and they noticed that the Aborigine people who went through the lost generation were blonde with straight hair and blue eyes or green eyes, and you could not see not even a hint of melanin on them, right? And then these people said, well, in the lost generation, in the whitewashing phase, their parents were raped. Their parents could be as black as cocoa beans, and their parents were raped, and the child came out looking white. They took those kids and put them into the foster community, right? But they still ostracized them and called them Aborigines and did not give them rights till to 2000 to vote. But their black community, right, quote unquote, the people who had darker melanin looked at them as you're white, You don't know what I'm going through. Meanwhile, they only associated with not being a half and half, but they know associated with being Black, African only, right? But then we came from the outside, and a lot of people from the inside, on the outside, coming from the America and the UK, came and looked at them and said, you don't have as much melanin as me. You can't call yourself Black. So to wrap it up, we need to fix that problem and that thought process, that division that is there. And the second thing I will say is that when you fast forward it, they have been raped too. They have had their families killed and butchered. We need to unify and understand that no matter the color of your melanin, that we are all one race. And if we don't have a race to call, then how can we really expect the government to fight for us or to even represent us?
All right, Robin, and then, go ahead.
I'm kind of just totally against the whole idea of having a political party, because I feel like any African that exists within the Western world, why are we attempting to exist within Western society when it's not built for us? We're supposed to be doing things for ourselves. And what you're doing is you're trying to enter their arena yet again and saying, please validate me, include me. No, I'm not about that. Like, we need to, as Jatali said, it's about healing as a community. It's about unifying as a community. And we don't need to enter the House of Lords for that to happen.
Yeah, greetings. My thing is this. Politics is not about being liked. It's not about unity. Politics is to get resources for our community. And the way to get resources, there's a phrase they use in marketing: do not leave any money on the table. And what that means is when people talk about business, when people talk about entrepreneurship, they don't just make their money in business, they don't just make their money in entrepreneurship, they use government and local government funds as well. And so what you'll find is those communities that are politically organized, they are there to get those resources. And if we take the attitude that, well, we shouldn't even be here, I'm not disagreeing. I think, we need to consider where we need to go. But the main point is, at the present state of knowledge, 2.5 million Black people ain't going nowhere. So while we're here, we've got to get a plan to get those resources.
All right, so you asked the question, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I agree with the brother here who said Labour are not for us, Conservatives are not for us. What I find within the political parties is that Black people tend to occupy the bottom of the socio-economic ladder within the political parties, whichever one, doesn't matter which one. So the reason why I ask that question is because if we create our own political party, like Robin Walker said, for me it's layered. And so if you're here, a lot of Black people I find are can be very one-dimensional.
I want to say, first of all, the entire panel is right. All of you guys are right, and I commend, seriously, and I commend even the discussion, because these are discussions, and red and blue will tell you that we don't even have anymore in the Black community in the States. Should we have a party? Because we have a winner-take-all system, whether it's on the state, local, or federal level, the winner takes all. And in the presidential, we don't even really elect the president. Electorals that are appointed by each state actually elect the president. So to hear this dynamic debate and discussion is excellent. But I also want to say that because you don't have a winner-take-all system, it would behoove you to have your own party. Because if you get to a certain point, you start with 2%, 3%, and eventually 10%, you have a voice in Parliament where we're going tomorrow, right? So I think it would behoove you to organize yourselves as one block, because it's not a winner-take-all system. See, we always have to be at the fulcrum of the Republicans, conservatives, the Democrats, the middle in the United States. So that changes our dynamic. Even if we organize ourselves, we live in a purely two-party system. So I commend you guys. Keep up the great work. Hope you're successful in your party. I'm trying to be successful and separate from the white man myself. So I think we can do all things and make them real.
All right, we're moving forward. So we're going to the next question. I'm sorry, I've got to keep this strict or the time is going to run away. We have a question from presenter Miss New Love. Please stand. You can give, what did I say about the round of applause? What did I say about the round of applause? What's your question?
I had it written down, so let me just go back to it.
Try and remember your questions, people.
Sorry, bear with me. Oh, yes, I remember. Is there still room for polygamy in the black community? Okay. I know that's all quite fun. Another place.
Is there still room for polygamy in the black community? I'm going to start with one of the ladies. Yeah, let's start with Jatali.
Alright, so I feel like sometimes we get caught up in terminologies and words and separation, right? Polygamy does not necessarily work for everyone, but I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with it. I just do not think that spiritually it is for everyone, right? I feel like we have to follow our spirit. So growing up, I had the pleasure of my dad, who was a barrister for the Queen. So when someone British got in trouble in another country in Africa, the Crown would send him to see if they should be, removed from that system and brought to the UK system. And like one of the countries we went to was Kenya. And I remember I met this Kenyan chief, and this king basically had 9 wives, and all of the huts were immaculate. His oldest kid was like 30-something years old, and I remember I was like maybe 11 years old. And the first time I saw this truly in action, and all 9 wives are beautiful and happy and healthy. All the homes are clean. One wife was sick.
How was he looking?
He looked amazing. He looked like a vampire, and he wasn't tired. And it was so funny. So one of the conversations I remember hearing was one of the wives was like, "Oh, I think it's your turn with him this week," and then the other wife was like, "Well, good, I'm tired this week, right?" And it was the simplest thing. I was 11 years old. And I remember thinking like, so I went back to my dad and I used to have this open relationship conversation with him. I could kind of discuss anything with him. And I was like, "Daddy, is he married to all these women?" And he was like, "Yeah, in some cultures, they have multiple wives."
So what is your opinion on it?
So my opinion is I don't think it's wrong. I think that it should be an option for each person, man or woman. And we shouldn't shun someone because they have multiple wives. Because it's part of some of our history in Africa where certain tribes had multiple wives. If you don't like it, then leave it alone. It's just not for you. But I've seen it work.
All right.
And I've seen it work. And even as an adult, I've seen it work. And I've seen women who are happy. And some are miserable. But when it's not their choice. But it should be a choice.
Brother Blue Pill. Brother Blue. Brother Blue. We ain't heard from you yet. Someone pass Brother Blue mine.
I don't know if what goes on in the States is somewhat different than what goes on here. Even though if we want to discuss and talk as an African family, then we should assert ourselves as an African family. And if a melanated man is in a situation where there's a disproportionate amount of females that have a level of availability, and if there's a level of training that's explained, it has to be, Brother Polite speaks about the fact that you have to structure it as a business, you know what I'm saying? Okay. And if you set it up as a business, like the sister said, if there's a level of resources being allocated in your developing community and these people are part of your structure, your business structure, then I see that, there's something that could be done. If we're looking at the dynamic of a village, and that person that is without is, pretty much either gonna be creeping or trying to creep or, doing whatever they need to do to be satisfied. So, why can't there be a situation where that man, if these people around him have an interest in him, can establish some sort of situation, because you're gonna creep anyway, right? So I don't know exactly if what's going on back home is somewhat different than what's going on out here, but that's how I'm looking at it. If man on man can be allocated the right to marry, and that's for socio-economical reasons, then why is polygamy something that's outlawed? And if a man can call himself a woman, and all of these things that's going on in society, why is the last barrier, right? A man is willing to say, I can step up and handle the responsibility of building community and family and village and all of these things.
All right, Jamelia.
So I think America is a great example. A lot of black men are already living polygamously, if that's even a word. But the problem is that they don't have the freedom to do that, so we demonize them. Some of us are polygamous, some of us are not built to be monogamous. White men in America can exist and have several different wives. They're, building infrastructure. But what I'm saying is they're able to live and build. And if we approached it in a positive way, some men, some women as well, should be allowed to be polygamous, because that is how. I'll use this terminology. That is how they identify. But what we're doing is demonizing them because they got one bag of baby mothers, or they got side chicks or stuff like that. It wouldn't be that if we accepted it and if we acknowledged that this can be a way of life, and if we approached it in a way where we're building infrastructure, we're building families, it can actually be positive. You look at any of those Amish families, Mormon families in America, they're doing it successfully. And in Africa, culturally, we've been doing this. But we, our minds have been, okay, no?
I'm coming, no, whoa, Blue, one second, hold on. Finish up, then I want to hear from the pastor.
Okay, and obviously... But even the idea of monogamy has been enforced on us. It's not, it doesn't come naturally to everyone. And I just kind of feel that there is something to be said about allowing people to live freely. You're looking at me like... Can you say, not my husband though? You stuck.
Obviously, if I take a faith position and a biblical position, the Bible advocates one man for one woman. There's some interesting... No. We're talking about New Testament now, and what the church means by it. So let's just take it step by step, because I don't think I'm going to come from a traditional position that you think I'm going to come from. The church advocates one man, one woman. Yeah. We need to ask a simple question, I think a deeper question, about the commodification of black women in male psyche. That's slightly different, because if we invert the process and we ask if one woman can have several men, we will see a very vociferous argument coming from hyper-masculine males. So we need to ask some very serious questions about what we're actually articulating. I'm not saying it's acceptable. I'm saying from where I stand is not something that I would countenance, but we have to ask deeper questions, particularly as what we've seen in Western society is that hypermasculinity expresses itself in the dominance, control, and ownership of black women. And we have to ask if we're colluding with people outside of our community in dehumanizing the sisters that we're actually advocating for.
I agree, and I'd like to add something on top with everything, because again, because as I said before, we're all coming from different perspectives, and the perspective I'm coming from is we're looking at conditioning of the African Black West Indian mindset for over 500 years. So when we talk about polygamy, it's not going to resonate with everyone because half of us don't even know what that means. We don't know what it looks like because most of us grew up in Christian backgrounds. So talking about sex alone, we can't even do, let alone talk about polygamy. And then we talk about one man, one woman. Again, as Brother Bluepill had said, it's about economics. It's not about sexual gratification or satisfaction. It's about how you're building your families and your community. And what I find that we struggle with is we don't know how to be honest with ourselves. And we've been trained to follow somebody else's ideology of how we're supposed to do things, how we're supposed to fit in, how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. If we're mad, we can't be mad. When I shout, I'm an angry black woman, not somebody who's infuriated based on my experiences and things that have happened. So when we start talking about polygamy, Do we understand family? Do we understand listening? Do we understand respect? Resources? What do we have to build? Are we building doctors? Are we building people who are going to be developing the society? So when we talk about polygamy, that's where I'd like us to start looking at polygamy.
Come on, pass back to Felder and Mike.
Well, 3 things that we should consider is, one, like the sister so eloquently stated, we are not who we were when we left Mother Africa, right? The mere fact that we're in England having a conversation in the English language means, and most of us don't have our mother tongues. So there's things that we can't communicate. We just came from the British Museum today, and the elder Mfudishi is reading the Medulla, the sacred speech, off the tablets, off the walls, right? And there's things that can't even be translated into the English language, whether it's Akan, whether it's Swahili, so on and so forth. So that's one. We have foreign ideas in our head, right? And I'm not saying monogamy is one of them, right? 2, we have to consider the social destruction that has happened to our families over those 500 years because monogamy is not the only type of family. Polyandry, polygamy, so on and so forth. These are different, various forms of family, but like Sister said, do we understand what family is? Now, I'm gonna recommend everybody read a book, right? 2 books. One is called Das Kapital, and the other book is called The Origin of the Family and Private Property in the State. These books make you understand that it's a war. This is talking about, they don't want you to be polygamous or polyandrous because you could become a rival to the state. This is how legacies, this is how monarchies are born, right? So if this one man here, not to put it all on you, had 10 wives, and each of those 10 wives, right, had 10 children, right? And we lived in a traditional style of living with farming and so forth. Do you know what he could do with those 100 children? So he would become a king of his own clan, right? So you have to look at those things as well. We can't just get emotional about a question or look at it from, even if it's religious, right? We can't just look at it from one perspective. We have to have multiple perspectives and understand the origins of things and why the things are.
All right. And then we're moving forward.
Yeah, I come from the Abrahamic school of thought, you could say, yeah. But, and obviously, personally, I ain't really advocating for polygamy for myself because, you know, your hands, you know what I'm saying? The man that want it better know you're going to have a lot on your hands. That's what I'm saying. So don't be advocating for the thing if you can't handle it. Yeah? But anyway, yeah. But there was a point that that the pastor made about, you know, if women was wanted multiple husbands. I still think that point is different. Yeah, because even if you're going to go to the Abrahamic traditions, even if you're dealing with the New Testament, at one point Abraham had many wives, but Sarah didn't have many husbands. So even if you're going from the biblical standpoint, there was never a point within the biblical standpoint of women having multiple husbands. Do you know what I'm saying? In the same sense.
I'm not going to argue. The question I was asking is, how would men respond, and how would the argument differ if it was being advocated?
I personally think because women are internal, men are external, and I think it's more about what the brother said. If I was to do polygamy, it would be nation building. Yeah, it would be nation building. It would be about having the multiple children. Listen. I'll explain it. If one woman has 5 husbands, once she gets impregnated, that's going to take 9 months for that one child to come out. So she can't have that man can't bring forth multiple children.
That child has 5 fathers.
Yeah, the child has 5 fathers, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is on the other way around, the child has 5 mothers. So not only does it have 5 points of nurturing, but those 5 women are able to...
I see panel members reaching for mics now, boy.
To be honest.
1 minute. Wait, can I just land?
Bring that land.
No, but what I'm saying is, my main point is here that, and it just echoes what you said. Yeah, when you're talking about polygamy, one, family. Yeah, if a man isn't inclined about family and it's anything to do with sex, he should leave it out. That's one thing. The second thing is that a reality is that a lot of people are living in polygamous relationships, whether they like it or not right now. So that's another thing. So that goes down to the nature. But thirdly, what I think is that once
one woman, once one man impregnates 5 women, 10 women, just like the brother said, that's like a nation. And those mothers can co-parent those children and they can build a good family together, you get me?
All right. So I just want to go back. So Miss New Love, just in reflection, because you asked the question, what are your thoughts?
My dad has 12 children and had 4 wives, and all the 4 wives. Well, my mum was the second wife, and so I grew up in it. So, but obviously, it's not like Jamelia said. Not for me. I don't agree with it. I think it brings a lot of confusion and a lot of problems. So yeah. So, but I just wanted to know everyone's views, because we have a strong panel here. Yeah, I just wanted to know what everyone's view was on the thing.
All right, we have a question from film director Leon Oldstrong. Where you at?
Right, my question, based partly on my own experience as well, is colorism as big an issue in the black community as it's portrayed? Can I pick someone?
Yeah. All right, so his question was, is colorism as big a deal in the black community as people make out? And he wanted Adele to answer first.
Right, thank you very much, Leon. I think colorism is a continued issue within our African community. I've got some examples where I've really experienced some situations based on the fact that my melanin is lower, weaker, poor, whatever anybody would like to describe it, than anybody else. But yeah, I'm quite a militant activist within the community. So how does that work within itself? I think that the media is continuing to promote this and condone this ideology, and people may disagree with me, but I am of mixed heritage. But I'm noticing now that in the media, we are now seeing that rather than having strong African families represented in advertising, for instance, you're seeing a lot more mixed race portrayed. Now, there's no issues with that, but it's still not showing us the strong, deep melanin families and young people and how strong they can be within the community. It's still suggesting that those of us with a lot of melanin are of a lower caste to everybody else, and that's portrayed through the media. And I'm not even talking about the Dove advert at this point, or the advert where the young boy was wearing his H&M advert. So yes, the issue's still there, but unfortunately we still condone it ourselves in certain parts of our activities. So I'll give an example, and I hope there's nobody here from that. But a few years ago, I went to an all-African event, and when I reached to the door, I was asked, did you know this was an all-African event? Are you really sure you should be here? But I got to say, all honour to the higher forces, about 4 years later, they invited me to speak at their event, actually at their Marcus Garvey event, to close the Marcus Garvey event, which they said was one of their strongest events. And I said, look at that. So maybe some of us, where our melanin is dark, maybe we're looking for something else there for our own, to feel our own confidence within that. But we need to be confident in who we are. And I also want to speak to those of us who are of a lighter melanin, not to feel second class to our own stronger melanin brothers and sisters as well. So it's still there. We condone it, but the media are making sure that we continue to hold on to that.
Brother Red Pill.
Well, in my opinion, one of the cons of living in a colonial society, or a society that is basically, responsible for colonizing half the planet, is that they weaponized colorism. Yeah. This is a war tactic. This is something that your colonizers have implemented into the psyches of Africans throughout time immemorial. It's called Willie Lynch in America, and it's called other things in other places. There's an illusion that our people are under and we suffer because of that illusion. And that illusion is there's somebody on this planet that is superior than you. I hear people throwing around the word minority. Where? How could anybody be a minority in anywhere where, you know what I'm saying, on this continent where it's more people of melanin than anybody? Don't use that word. You're not a minor. You know what I'm saying? So they have utilized their amalgamated offspring in the structure of holding on to power for time immemorial. This has been weaponized. Their children, we're in London, so we're in Europe, so you're familiar with the Moorish story or the Moorish saga and how the Moorish offspring was used against their parents to topple them. So in the community, there still exists a level of distrust when there are, you know, amalgamated children, and we don't know if those children have the allegiance, if they're fighting with those two nations in their bosoms. I mean, our president in America, Barack Hussein Obama, was a perfect example of how they weaponized their offspring to serve their agenda, ultimately to have our face, but to have their agenda at hand. So there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the community, because I totally agree with what you're saying about we cannot totally judge based off of the levels of melanin. We're getting into this information about what melanin is in the last few decades and whatnot. So now people are using a new brown paper bag test. You understand? It's the reverse brown paper bag test. Oh, your melanin is not that popping. I don't know if I don't know if Ra is with you. Yeah. You know? And it's shit, you know. Because we know that would be false. Because there's some people who are blue, black, purple. And all skin folk is not kinfolk. So we know that melanin is not necessarily a deterrent to, you know. Yeah. So we just need to communicate more. There needs to be a level of code, and that's what a political party affords. And by, you know, we could use the mask of a political party, but we need a code, and that code needs to bring unification of purpose. Because in community, there's common unity. So we could eradicate because this whole thing is malware. It's a virus that was implanted in us from somebody who is inferior to us based on genetics. It's not nothing personal. It's based off of a genetic inferiority because you can eradicate them with your DNA. So there's always going to be a schism. There's always going to be a line drawn. So we got to work on that. But those who have that melanin, we got to get on that side and stay on that side and stop playing these double dutch games and jumping the fence, because it's not going to work out for you in the end.
Jamelia, then Robin Walker.
I'm someone, I definitely do think that colorism is an issue, but what I will say is that I grew up in a Rastafarian household, and I only became aware of colorism when I kind of came into contact with the media. And I think that the best way for us to combat colorism is by educating our children. I knew about the Willie Lynch theory from I was about 5 years old. No one could chat to me, nobody could demean me. I was so proud of everything. I knew my history, and it's very important for our children to walk out with that same energy, that same confidence. You cannot break someone who knows who they are. And I think it's and so when it comes to colorism, I'm not here to denounce it, I'm not here to say it doesn't exist, but understand where it's coming from, where these messages are coming from, why they're there. It's the Willie Lynch theory still working today. That's nonsense, and it's down to us. It's an inside job to eradicate it. Simple things.
Robin Walker.
I just wanted to throw one thing into the discussion that no one's brought up yet, and that is that colorism has also been gendered. In other words, the main target of colorism is black women. Yes. Now, this is not to say it doesn't hit black men, but the main target is black women. Let me give you a little story. I was invited to write someone's memoirs. So, you know when someone writes a memoir, they didn't write the memoir, trust me. They got somebody else to write. And the memoir was a gentleman, Alan Wilmot. And as I was researching his story, the main thing I learned was I downloaded off the internet. The BBC has pages of all the musical performances they've ever had since the BBC's been the BBC. So I would then tell you January the 1st, 1948, January the 2nd, January the 3rd, all that stuff, all the music that appeared. And I started to notice Cleo Lane. I started to notice Eartha Kitt. I started to notice more Cleo Lane, more Eartha Kitt, more Adelaide Hall. In other words, all the women being picked of colour had been shade graded before they could appear. Does that make sense? In other words, that had been going on from the beginning. And so you can't have a situation, it's like, you flick a knife, they flick a coin and it comes down heads. And then you do it 100 times, it comes down heads. And you do it another 100 times, it still comes down heads. It's not an accident. They've been doing this from the longest.
Charles Gordon.
Just this whole colorism topic to me it's not new. What concerns me is the fact that
that's because you're light skinned.
Say again?
That's because you're light skinned.
Light skin problems, yeah. What concerns me is that it starts from when we're kids. Like when we're children, it's the things we watch on TV. All of these things are subtly brainwashing us from before the game has even begun. So by the time we get to the stage where we're making decisions and looking at things, we've already indoctrinated into a certain way of thinking, which ultimately creates and promotes white supremacy, because everything that we've been led to believe is great is always white, and that starts with programming from, and it's basically even like to EastEnders. The only guy, the black guy who was the pastor, ended up burying the people in the square, and that's symbolic of what they do to make us feel as if we're not. Well, anyway, let me just move on. There's a little meme I saw. And it was a guy sitting there in a Ku Klux Klan outfit. And he said, if I kill one of you guys, he said, there'll be major uproar. But if I get you to kill one of you guys, no one cares. Yeah? And that's basically what's been, when you said earlier about it being weaponized, that's effectively what's happening. It's happening within our communities in the postcode wars. And they've got the black kids killing each other in order to eradicate. It's a win-win for them. They stab each other, one's dead, the other one's in prison making light switches. So ultimately they win. And the point is, I think these things are weaponized and they're being used against us. And the scary thing is that we don't even see it happening. I think that's my only point.
Jatali.
They're going to come up in a bit, so.
Of course, I agree with everyone. Colorism is a major issue. I mentioned it earlier, the whole Australia thing and etc. I just wanted to make one point because I am a mother of a young boy who will one day become a man. I feel like black men in America, I don't think it's just only black women or just only black men, because I feel like equally black men in this country have a target on their backs, because in certain rooms, we as women can walk into a room and not be seen, and sometimes not being seen saves our lives, but a black man walks into a room and he's always seen and he's a target.
How does that relate that to colorism? Relate that to the question.
He made a comment that he felt that colorism affected women more, and I just don't feel like it only affects women more. I feel like it's a thing that just affects us as black people, period. End of story. There is no more. It just affects us differently depending race and gender. That's all I wanted to put out there, because as a mother to a boy, once again, I feel like every time he walks out that door, I hear all these stories of young boys being shot in cars, little boys being shot by police, especially in America, and my heart skips a beat. And it's all by his color. There was a young boy who was a black boy who had autism, and he was also deaf, and he didn't hear the officer talking to him. And just because he was black, the officer shot him, and he was like 7 years old.
But what we're talking about specifically, I think the question specifically is colorism in our community, not externally, but within the community.
That's within our community, I just feel like it's equal, no matter what.
Hi, I'm good evening and well done, Justin, for the evening. Well done to the panel. I wanted to say something. I'm from Liverpool. I'm old school, so I'm 64. So I can remember in Liverpool, like just to say, you didn't go outside your community, but the colorism was in the community when I was growing up. Like the man said, the BBC had this list. If you're light, stay inside. If you're brown, hang around. And if you're black, and how many years ago is that? Yes? Secondly, we have black economic power. Do not buy the brands that you do not like. Why are you shopping in the negative shops?
Come on.
How many people here drink Fanta? How many drink Fanta? Seriously?
Once in a
Right,
while.
do you know Fanta is a Nazi drink? Coca-Cola invented it for the German soldiers. I'm talking about colorism. We need to be careful where we, A, spend our money, and B, how we react to the colorism. If you don't buy into it, they won't do it. It's as simple, you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. And what I'm trying to say is the silent form of protest. You just don't do it. I'm just going to go back to the gentleman who's doing the politics thing. Even if you vote against the party, it doesn't matter. But the politics going tomorrow, it can be your local school. Get on the PTA. Get on the council. Be seen in the community and be speaking and be part of it. Otherwise, you can be just as bad as they are. You have a voice, use it.
Fantastic. No other Raspect, then we need to move on to the next question.
Colorism in the black community, wherever it is, Caribbean, America here. I mean, we know it's reality, but for me, I always want to look at the root of a problem, socially, politically, historically, how we got there. Colorism is white supremacy in a brown face inside of ourselves, right? So we have to begin to deduct why we think like this. Where does it come from? We understand Willie Lynch, so and so. That's a simple way of saying our breaking process. We were broken into that thinking, straightening our hair, skin bleaching cream in Africa, in the Caribbean, in the United States today, and maybe even here. So, but also we have to look at the way we look at ourselves as a race. We look at ourselves, we look at as black or African as one phenotype from West Africa. And that is not the only type of African we have. We're the most genetically diverse people on the planet, right? That's why DNA is so strong. So, like, my mother's an indigenous African. My mother is not dark skinned, right? You have Africans we have almost half a billion Africans in India. They're black people. They consider themselves black. They're treated the way they are because they're the indigenous people of that land. So we have to change through education, through knowledge amongst ourselves to say that we cannot allow the people that raped us into the condition that we're in today, right? And then said the light-skinned one is better than the dark-skinned one. And the ones in the middle are better than the ones on this side, and so on and so forth. So we have to take those reins and that responsibility with our children, within ourselves, and open our minds up to what is an African, what is a black person.
All right. Raspect.
I'm going to be quick because I know we've got to move on, yeah? So I was just going to say that if you look at African people, we have, like the brother said, we've got a diverse phenotypes and shades from long time, you know what I'm saying, right across the continent. Yeah, and it's not something that just affects our community, Asian community. They only put out the light-skinned actors, Indian community. They do the same thing, and I think that we have to just call out the vice cartels and Jamaica and the brothers from Nigeria. Now we have to call it out. We have to say that we're not with that. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm gonna end it on the Willie Lynch speech. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna set the light skin against the dark skin.
My mum, which I think most people wouldn't see, my mum is white, but I'm not light enough to get the light skin privilege that Jason said. But I've always been called light skin. I don't feel I'm very light skinned, and I don't really care how people outside of the community perceive me. But it's really hurtful when your own see you that way. When like whatever my mum is doesn't benefit me in any way. Like I don't get let off like, hold on, his mum's white. I'm a black man. I am a black man, but you know, it's been from a small age, and even to as recent as last year, I've been called bounty, coon, and those are the reasons were that I don't tick the stereotypical boxes. The way I speak, I was told I was like a white man for turning up on time to a job that a black guy had asked me to do for him. Like, I was making a short film about the experience of black women in the UK, and one of the women who came along to be interviewed Pops told me she thought I was a coon, and I thought, regardless of how I present myself or anything, look at what I'm making off my own back. Like, no one gave me the money for it. Why would you say that to me? Because I don't tick this box. So yeah, that was the whole reason for asking the questions. I can kind of, even though we shouldn't experience, I can get my head around a white person perceiving me in a certain way, but when you're like, you're me, you're us, it's not okay. And yeah, I don't, you know. Anyway.
I passed him on the back to wrap it up and might actually move away from you.
Achomi na Adele Bojo Kwe, Nimbiane Nyanko, gotkushTV, Nyeyiradon. My name is Adele Bojo Kwe, and right now you're watching gotkushTV. Thank you.
gotkushTV. After a brief sabbatical, your #1 black conscious media platform is back. Since 2015, gotkushTV has blazed a trail in creating high-quality cultural content for the black community UK and worldwide. We've rolled out the red carpet to the widest array of community organizations ever on one visual media platform, bringing you events like Messiah Storm, the Black Marketing Film Festival, ALD, the Black Genius Festival, to name but a few. We launched UK Fire 32, your #1 platform for artists with message in the music. We dropped the trailer for the group economic show, and you made it viral. We brought you heavyweights like Swiss, Mota Baruka, Robin Walker, Esther Stanford, Kayne Andrews, The Flowissist, Omar, Jahazel, Raspect, Fyahbinghi, Cheryl Phoenix, Dead Press, KRS-One, and more. We collaborated with Defenders Entertainment to drop the Black Lives Matter mixtape and launch our music video production services from this project. Now, with such a monumental track record, it's time to launch Phase 2, gotkush 2.0. Building on this strong foundation, we've been working hard behind the scenes, getting ready to move into the next stage of development, bringing you new shows, higher quality, and of course, fresh edutainment. Stay tuned for more UK Fire 32, the #1 platform for bars of substance, bringing you an array of artists, spitting the finest in all forms of black music, from the up-and-coming to the fully established. We whet your appetite with the trailer, and soon we will be releasing the full pilot episode of the group economic show, soon to be followed by regular installments as we raise the financial literacy and economic productivity of our community. Look out for the new shows. The Insight, hosted by gotkush's own Shakara, as he kicks the ballistics and drops the cultural scientifics with weekly breakdowns looking deep into all issues pertaining to black culture. And Decipher, home of gotkushTV in-depth discussion and fiery debate, a dynamic panel ready to exchange opinions on all the topical issues of the day. All this, plus the community news, views and reviews you are used to. And there's more. Our production team is available for hire to cover your events and all filming needs. Contact us at gotkushtv.co.uk for more information. Stand by, all black businesses, as we have monumental advertising, sponsorship and networking opportunities coming your way soon. And very soon. To stay on board the gotkush train, there's 4 things you can do. 1. Subscribe to our channel. Click that bell and join us at gotkushTV on all social media. 2. Like. Let us know you're feeling our content by hitting that ever so important button of approval. 3. Comment. Give us your feedback and opinions in the comment section. 4. Share. Spread the word by hitting that share button and exposing your circle to the magnificence that is GKTV. Stay tuned for more developments in the pipeline. We look forward to you joining us as we continue to develop fresh, multifaceted content from black music to black group economics and more, bringing you the complete picture of black culture. gotkushTV. Beyond entertainment, beyond debates, we put the power in black media. gotkushTV is supported by Better Marketing Mastery, Defenders Entertainment, the Manhood Academy for Boys, Center of Pan-African Thought, Black History Walks, the Al-Kebo Land Revivalist Movement, and Marifa Circle.